Chapter 51, Outer Sect Competition, Part 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 3 days passed in a flash. Early in the morning, Qingfengmen seemed particularly lively. Many monks could be seen everywhere in the sky. They turned into various colors of light and flew in the air. Some were in groups of 2 or 3, and some were alone. Looking at the direction they flew, they were all heading towards the inner gate. Normally, outer disciples were not allowed to enter the inner gate at will, but deacon disciples were an exception. They could enter and exit the inner gate at will with tokens. There is a towering mountain in the inner gate, called Dozhan Peak. The reason why it is named Dozhan Peak is that the big competition held every 5 years is held here, and disciples usually come here to compete. Normally, fighting is strictly prohibited in Qingfengmen, but if there is a conflict between fellow disciples, they can come here to duel and compete. They just need to report to the elder who guards the peak. At the same time, the elder who guards the peak will also act as a referee for the disciples to prevent casualties. At the top of this battle peak, there is a valley. Above the valley is a huge platform square. There are 10 arenas on the platform. There are densely packed seats in 3 directions outside the arena. These seats are stepped and extend all the way to the sky. On the other side of the huge platform, there are less than 100 seats, and these seats can only be sat on by elders in the foundation building period. At this time, most of the thousands of seats were already full of monks. They were talking happily. Looking at their eyes, they were obviously excited, but some people looked bad and sighed from time to time. This competition was really happy and sad. Those who thought they had a high level of cultivation were waiting for the competition to start, while those with low cultivation were full of worries. It was nothing more than a competition that was held every 5 years. They felt that they had no chance to enter the inner gate again. But the elders' seats were empty. Obviously, the elders had not arrived yet. At this moment, 3 beams of light flew in the sky from a distance. Upon closer inspection, they were Wu Fan, Zhou Yu, and Bai Xiaowen. Senior brother Zhou, junior brother Wu, I finally saved enough spirit stones some time ago, and went to the Changyang market to buy a high-level magic weapon. This time I must enter the inner gate. If I can be favored by any elder, it will be even better. Bai Xiaowen boasted to Zhou and Wu happily. Senior brother Zhou Yu rolled his eyes, snorted, and then said, there are more than 600 high-level qi refining cultivators in this competition. I am not sure I can enter the inner gate. When Bai Xiaowen heard this, the flying sword under his feet suddenly shook, and then he continued on his way with his head down. Junior brother Wu, how are you preparing? Don't feel pressured. If you fail to enter the inner gate this time, you will still have another chance 5 years later. As long as you are under 30 years old, you can participate in the outer gate competition. At this time, senior brother Zhou turned his head and looked at Wu Fan and said, Alas, junior brother, I don't have much confidence in myself. If I can't enter the inner gate this time, I can only wait until next time. Wu Fan shook his head and replied. Look, we are here, there are so many cultivators. I saw senior sister Xinyan, she is still so beautiful. Look, there are also senior sister Jingyao, senior sister Zhirua. Oh, I actually saw senior sister Ling Wei. I dare to guarantee that senior sister Ling Wei will definitely be in the top 3. Senior sister Ling Wei is really beautiful. If she can be my dual cultivation partner, I will wake up with laughter in my dreams. Bai Xiaowen had a drooling expression, and wiped his saliva after he finished speaking. Wu Fan and Zhou Yu rolled their eyes at the same time. Wu Fan saw that there were already more than 1,000 people sitting on the huge square, and there were obviously fewer female cultivators than male cultivators, about 500 or 600 people. Each of them looked like a fairy. From a distance, they looked like 100 flowers sitting there in full bloom. However, each of them had their own beauty. With Wu Fan's personality, they were all brightened. Wu Fan also saw the Ling Wei sister mentioned by Bai Xiaowen. Ling Wei was indeed extremely beautiful. Her skin was as white as cream, her face was as white as peach blossoms, her eyes were bright, and she was wearing a light yellow dress. She sat in the crowd like a colorful butterfly. Ling Wei seemed to feel that someone was looking at her, and then looked at Wu Fan. Wu Fan blushed and turned his head hurriedly to look elsewhere. When Ling Wei saw Wu Fan's behavior, her eyebrows frowned and she turned her head away. After Wu Fan and the other two came to the square, they found an empty seat and sat down. At this time, Brother Zhou Yu said, "The competition will start in another hour, and the elders should be here soon." As time went by, more and more disciples came to the square, and soon the seats were filled. At this time, I saw a group of lights flying in the sky. They flew very fast and had an amazing aura. They flew straight to the elders' seats, and finally landed on the chairs. Some of them were middle-aged men, some were white-haired old men, and some were beautiful young women. After sitting down, some of them chatted with the monks next to them, while others closed their eyes and rested. That's right, these people were all foundation-building monks. Since the arrival of these foundation-building monks, the square platform was silent, and the disciples behaved very cautiously. When Wu Fan saw these foundation-building elders, he was also shocked. He had never seen so many foundation-building monks before. Seeing their powerful aura, Wu Fan himself felt frightened. The Great Xia Kingdom is huge, but in the world of immortal cultivation, there are very few foundation-building cultivators, and it is difficult to see them at ordinary times. Cultivators at their level are basically pursuing the way to immortality. They meditate and practice in the cave every day, but rarely go out. Since Wu Fan entered the world of immortal cultivation, he has only seen a foundation-building cultivator once, and that was Elderly who brought him up the mountain. Wu Fan had also inquired before that Elderly was a powerful cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building, and he had a very high status in Qingfeng sect. The reason for this was that Elderly was an alchemy master. His alchemy ability was among the top few even in the entire Xia Kingdom immortal cultivation world, and he was one of the elders in Danding Peak. When Wu Fan first met Elderly, he was going to buy a spiritual medicine, as if he was preparing to refine a furnace of very important elixirs for urgent use. On the way back, he brought Wu Fan back by the way. It should be said that Elderly was Wu Fan's benefactor. At this time, most of the elders' seats were already occupied. After Wu Fan's careful search, he finally saw Elderly in the front row. He was chatting and laughing with someone next to him. The two elders were talking about something, and they kept glancing at the outer disciples from time to time. However, Elderly did not notice Wu Fan. Chapter 52, Outer Sect Competition, 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As time passed, almost all the elders were seated, and about 70 elders came during the foundation building period. At this moment, I saw a golden light suddenly flying from the sky, and slowly stopped in the sky above the foundation building elder. The light gradually dispersed, revealing an old man inside. The old man looked to be in his 70s. He had white hair and a white beard, a ruddy complexion, and was wearing a moon-white robe. When I first saw him, I felt like I was seeing an immortal with celestial demeanor. I saw him standing high in the sky with a serious face, but there was a sense of majesty in him. Just as the old man looked down at the crowd below, the more than 70 foundation-building monks below all stood up, and at the same time bowed to the old man in the sky and said, "See the leader." At this moment, the more than 1,000 disciples below also stood up with a hurrah, and also saluted the old man in the sky, shouting, "See the leader." Although Wu Fan had never seen the leader, he hurriedly followed everyone and bowed to the old man. The old man glanced at the crowd below, and then said, "Everyone, please get up." "Thank you, Master," everyone said in unison. The old man had no intention of landing on the ground. He looked towards the foundation-building monks and said, "Today is the outer sect competition that happens every 5 years. Elders should carefully observe these disciples and don't miss a good immortal seedling. The disciples who choose to go to the inner sect will also be the backbone of our Qingfeng sect in the future. Respectfully obey the decree of the leader." All the foundation-building stage elders replied in unison. At this time, the old man looked in the direction of the outer sect disciples and said, "Disciples, you must perform well today. If any of you can enter the inner sect, the sect will make every effort to train you. Those with outstanding achievements will also be rewarded by the sect. Rewards are distributed." "Okay, let's start the competition. After the old man finished speaking, without waiting for those disciples to speak, he flew away with the light. After the old man flew away from Dujan Peak, he saw a middle-aged male monk in his 40s walking out of the area of the Foundation establishment elders. He only heard him say, "Disciples, I am Rui from Yuhua Peak. Yuan, you can call me Elder Rui. Today is the outer sect competition that happens every 5 years. Before we start, I would like to talk about the rules of the competition. As in previous years, everyone will be divided into 10 arenas to compete in battles, with pairs of duels. The top 100 will be selected from the competition, and these 100 disciples will be selected as inner disciples. In addition, those who perform well will be accepted as disciples by the elders." The middle-aged monk paused for a moment when he said this. After he looked around the crowd, he continued, "Finally, these 100 disciples will continue to compete and select the top 10 disciples. The top 10 disciples will take turns again. The specific rules of the round battle will be explained in detail after the top 10 are determined. In addition, the top 10 disciples will receive sect rewards, so I hope everyone can go all out. Finally, you must not intentionally seriously injure your opponent during the competition. Or kill fellow disciples. If such things are discovered, they will be treated as wanton killings of fellow disciples, and they will be severely punished, ranging from staying in seclusion for 5 years, to having their cultivation revoked and expelled from the Qingfeng sect. There are a total of 1,600 disciples participating in the competition this time. There are more than 100 people. Before the game starts, everyone draws lots to choose the arena, and then continues to draw lots to choose their opponents. For example, if number 1 is drawn, number 1 will go on stage to compete with number 2, number 3 will compete with number 4, and so on. All disciples, if you don't understand the rules of the competition, you can go to the stone monument outside the square to watch. There are detailed instructions there. The lottery will be carried out now. In half an hour, the official competition will start in the 10 arenas at the same time." After the middle-aged monk finished speaking, he turned around and walked back. At this moment, all the disciples below were heard running toward the ring with a hurrah. On the ring, wooden barrels had been prepared early, and there were more than 1,000 bamboo sticks in the barrels. "Senior brother Zhou, junior brother Wu, let's go quickly. I don't know which arena I will be drawn into. God bless me, please don't assign me to those powerful monk arenas." After Bai Xiaowen said this, he raised his hands to the sky. Wu Fan and Zhou Yu rolled their eyes at him at the same time. At this time, senior brother Zhou Yu said, "Let's go too. I just hope that the 3 of us will not be assigned to the same arena." Wu Fan, Zhou Yu, and Bai Xiaowen looked at each other and smiled, and then they all walked towards the ring. When Wu Fan came to the ring, there were very few bamboo sticks in the barrel. He casually took out one and saw 8 written on the bamboo stick. Wu Fan knew that he was assigned to the ring number 8, then he walked towards the number 8 ring. When he reached the number 8 ring, he saw more than 100 monks queuing up to draw lots. Wu Fan looked carefully. He did not find Zhou Yu and Bai Xiaowen. Obviously, the 3 of them were not assigned to the same ring. Wu Fan stood there and waited for a while. After the people gradually became scarce, he walked forward and came to the barrel and took out a bamboo stick. He saw 86 written on the bamboo stick. He knew that he had to compete with 85 next, but it was still early, because there were more than 80 people in front of him, and then Wu Fan returned to the stage with the bamboo stick. At this time, Zhou Yu and Bai Xiaowen also came back. At this time, Zhou Yu asked, "What is the ring number for junior brother Wu?" "Junior brother, I am on the 8th stage, senior brother Zhou, senior brother Bai, who are you?" "I am number 6, junior brother Bai is." "I'm in arena number 9, I just took a look at my classmates on arena number 9, and I didn't find those famous and powerful people there. I still have a good chance of entering the top 100 this time." Bai Xiaowen happily took that he was gesturing with the bamboo stick in his hand, and he obviously didn't realize that he was stealing someone else's words again. Half an hour later, after everyone got the bamboo sticks, except for the person holding the number 1 and number 2 bamboo sticks, everyone else walked off the ring. At this time, the monks on the 10 rings had already started a formal battle, while Wu Fan was talking to Zhou and Bai. He had also been watching the fighting in the ring below. He wanted to know the difference between their fellow sects and his own strength. After watching for a while, Wu Fan said, "My confidence has become stronger." In this way, until the afternoon, it was finally Wu Fan's turn to take the stage. He landed on the ring with his flying sword. At this time, there was already a man standing on the ring. This man was a male cultivator, about the same age as Wu Fan. At the 5th level of Qi cultivation, the man glanced at Wu Fan. When he found that the other person was more advanced than him, he couldn't help but show disappointment on his face. Then he was replaced by stubbornness. He only heard him say, "I'm cultivating at the lower peak. Please tell me your senior brother Gao's name." "Wu Fan, please teach me, junior brother." After Wu Fan said that, he released the fierce sun sword. The peak cultivator also released a flying sword, but this flying sword was a middle-grade magic weapon. Then he saw the flying swords collided together, making a roaring sound at the same time. When Wu Fan released the flying sword, he saw him making a secret with one hand, and a thin blade suddenly appeared in his hand. Then he saw him flicking it with one hand, and the wind blade ran towards the opponent extremely fast. The speed at which Wu Fan releases the wind blade is not comparable to that of ordinary people. The reason is very simple. Wu Fan is in a small space, but he has practiced these basic spells for many years and has already mastered these basic spells. Others do not have so many. They would not waste most of their time on practicing basic spells. With all this time, they would like to spend all their time on improving their cultivation. They would not waste it casually. At most, they can practice these basic spells to the highest level. Not bad for a small achievement. When Feng Xiu saw his flying sword being bounced away, he was shocked. Then he saw the opponent launch a wind blade. Without thinking too much, he hurriedly released a small shield in front of him. He wanted to block the wind blade first, and then think about other things. The solution, with a chi sound, the wind blade was blocked by the shield, but at the same time as he released the small shield, the opponent had already released 3 or 4 more wind blades, and at the same time, the opponent's flying sword also came straight towards him from behind. Feng Xiu knew that he lost. He did not expect that the opponent released the wind blade so fast. The opponent was too powerful. As soon as the fight started, he was already beaten by the opponent. "I surrender." Feng Xiu had just finished shouting when the opponent's flying sword stopped, and the wind blades were blocked by the small shield. Feng Xiu hugged Wu Fan and then walked down the stage dejectedly. After Wu Fan ended the fight, he also stood up and walked back. Chapter 53, Outer Sect Competition, v. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Wu Fan returned to the stage, he saw a look of surprise on Bai Xiaowen's face and said, "Junior brother Wu, when did you buy the high-level magic weapon flying sword? Also, how did you practice the wind blade technique? You seem to have mastered the wind blade technique, isn't it incredible?" Zhu also looked at Wu Fan with surprise on his face, but he did not speak, because everything he wanted to say had already been said by Bai Xiaowen. "Ahem, just practice casually like that." Wu Fan replied vaguely. "Just practice?" Bai Xiaowen rolled his eyes, obviously not believing it. "What about the flying sword?" "The flying sword was bought with the spirit stones I earned from doing tasks." "What mission is worth so many spiritual stones?" "A little adds up to a lot." While Wu Fan was chatting with Bai Xiaowen and Zhou Yu, his eyes were always watching the fighting on the field. It was not until dark that the middle-aged elder announced that the game was over today and would continue tomorrow morning. Wu Fan and the other 3 also returned to their residence, waiting to come back tomorrow. Zhou Yu and Bai Xiaowen won the competition very smoothly today, and Bai Xiaowen was very proud of it. Until the second day, Wu Fan stood in the ring. Opposite him stood a female cultivator. This woman was pretty, but a little short. However, she had the 6th level of Qi refining. There was no suspense in the fight. Wu Fan still won. On the third day, Wu Fan finally met a high-level qi refining cultivator, a male cultivator at the 7th level of qi refining, but the result was still the same. Wu Fan only used the fierce sun sword and basic spells to beat him until he gave up. Until the 4th day, Wu Fan knew that today was the day to determine the top 100, so he came to the Dozhan Peak early. There are still the last 200 disciples left, but these 200 disciples are nervous, and some looking forward to it. Nervous because I am afraid that if I encounter a strong opponent today and lose the game, then I really have no chance to compete with the inner sect. As for those disciples who are looking forward to it, they have advanced self-cultivation and want to make a splash today. If they are selected by the elders, they will jump over the dragon gate from now on. Zhou Yu and Bai Xiaowen have persisted until now. It can be said that they are very lucky. After these few days of competition, the only ones who could stay in the ring were high-level qi practitioners, so Wu Fan was very energetic. I saw that the elders in the foundation establishment period were also alert on this day, and at the same time they used their spiritual consciousness to observe each disciple carefully. If they met a disciple they liked, they would remember it in their hearts, and then they would think of ways to accept it as their disciples, fearing that there are other elders who compete with him. On this day, Wu Fan no longer suppressed his cultivation and revealed his 8th level cultivation strength. He was afraid that if he really entered the inner gate, he would not be able to explain his cultivation situation. An hour later, Wu Fan finally came on stage. His opponent today was an 8th level qi refining male monk. When the man saw Wu Fan, he released the flying sword without saying a word. Wu Fan also urged the flying sword to go towards the opponent, and released 3 fireballs in succession. The man on the opposite side controlled the flying sword and fought with the fierce sun sword. Then he slapped his storage bag, and a shield suddenly flew out in front of him. Then he took out a short fork and aimed at Wu Pukong again. Come! Wu Fan didn't expect that the opponent still had a magic weapon with him, so he didn't think much. He patted the storage bag, and the spirit rope flew out and went straight to the opponent. At the same time, he released 5 or 6 wind blades in succession. The short fork flew away. After a loud rumble, the opponent's short fork was blocked by the wind blade. The bundle of spiritual ropes had already been wrapped around the shield and tied up the man. From then on, the battle ended quickly. Concession. Wu Fan said and took back the spirit-binding rope and the fierce sun sword. The man opposite was looking at Wu Fan with a gloomy expression, and then he snorted, tossed his sleeves and left. At this time, some elders were watching the direction of Wu Fan's fight in the area of the Foundation establishment elders. Hey, this kid is interesting. He is the fastest to end the fight among the 10 arenas. Well, judging from the speed at which this little guy releases spells, he has already mastered it. It's really rare. If his spiritual roots and physique are outstanding, then I will decide to accept him as a disciple. Elder Huang, I am very fond of this little guy. I wonder if Elder Huang can part with me. Elder Zhao wants to follow me and rob someone so soon, then let's see who this little guy chooses. At this time, Elderly, who took Wu Fan up the mountain, also noticed this. When he saw Wu Fan, he was obviously stunned. He always felt that he had seen him somewhere before. After thinking about it carefully, he remembered that it turned out that this little guy had taken him up the mountain by himself. Come on, I really didn't expect that this little guy could reach the 8th level of qi refining with his qualifications of 5 elements miscellaneous spiritual roots. Elderly felt very puzzled and said to himself, normally, shouldn't it be? Did I check him wrongly? Elderly was there thoughtfully. I had no intention of telling anyone else about Wu Fan. After Wu Fan returned to the stage, he saw Zhou Yu and Bai Xiaowen looking at him like a monster. When Wu Fan saw the expressions of the two of them, he knew that he was in trouble. His own cultivation was still exposed. With senior brother Bai's character, he was not sure he would nag him for long. This was exactly the case. As soon as he sat down, Bai Xiaowen spoke. You. Listen to me, senior brother Bai, I didn't deliberately hide my cultivation before. I did this to make it easier to go out. I know you are very shocked right now, but there is nothing I can do about it. I am afraid that when you see my true cultivation, you will look like you now." At this time, senior brother Zhou Yu sighed and said, "Alas, junior brother Wu, you even hide it from us. It's a pity that we treat you as a brother." "Senior brother Zhou, I'm really sorry." Wu Fan stood up and bowed to the two. In this way, Wu Fan explained to the two for half an hour, and was finally interrupted by Bai Xiaowen, who was going to play the game. Finally, the matter was hastily ended. Before Bai Xiaowen was about to go on stage, Wu Fan stuffed a talisman into his arms. After reading it, Bai Xiaowen looked at Wu Fan with gratitude, and then walked onto the stage. Bai Xiaowen was lucky. His opponent was a 7th level Qi refining cultivator, who was at the same level as him. After a difficult and dangerous competition, he finally won the game, and at the same time suffered some minor injuries, but his eyes showed excitement. He finally entered the inner gate as he wished. Not long after, Zhou Yu also went on stage. He himself had the 8th level Qi refining cultivation, and his strength had always been relatively strong. In the end, he also won the game as he wished. Since then, the three of them finally entered the inner gate. They were happy and all the previous unhappiness disappeared. After the competition was over, the top 100 disciples were called to the stage under the envious gaze of other cultivators, and redrawn lots to decide their opponents. The next game was to decide the top 50. Wu Fan drew the 18th this time, and he was ahead of the competition. After 3 hours, it was finally Wu Fan's turn. Standing in front of Wu Fan this time was a female cultivator, who was at the 8th level of Qi refining. She was very beautiful, especially her long legs, which were very eye-catching. At this time, the woman had a charming look on her face, and she said coquettishly, "Brother, can you let me go? Junior sister really wants to win this game." Chapter 54, Outer Sect Competition, 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I also want to win this game, but I can only let down my junior sister. Wu Fan said, and then he prepared for the battle. The woman snorted coldly when she heard Wu Fan's words, and her face darkened. "Boy, then show us your skills." The woman released a long red silk, which circled in the air and headed straight for Wu Fan. Wu Fan slapped his storage bag, and the spirit rope flew out and immediately entangled the long silk. The two magic weapons instantly entangled together. At the same time, Wu Fan pinched the magic formula, and his Liang sword turned into red light and swooshed towards the woman. This was not over yet. Wu Fan had no intention of showing mercy to the woman. He recited the magic formula, and a huge ice cone suddenly gathered in front of his palm and shot madly towards the woman. The woman saw Wu Fan's attack was so fierce, and she was panicked. She didn't dare to neglect it. In a hurry, she suddenly released a round disc. The round disc was golden and turned out to be a high-level defensive magic weapon. With a loud bang, the round disc was hit by the fiery sun sword and flew away. Then the ice cone was close to the woman. In a panic, the woman suddenly took out a talisman. She clenched her palm and the talisman shattered. A golden light flew out of it and protected the woman's whole body. At this time, the ice cone had already come to her side and knocked it away with a bang. After landing, the woman spurted out a mouthful of blood. "I give up." The woman got up with difficulty and looked at Wu Fan with resentment. Wu Fan clasped his fists to the woman, and then he waved his arm. The fiery sun sword and the soul-binding rope circled in the sky and flew directly back to him. After Wu Fan put away his magic weapon, he flew straight to the stage. He was too lazy to look at the woman's face. "Brother Wu, you are too powerful. You beat that beautiful woman to vomit blood in a few seconds. You really can't bear it." Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said with disdain. At this time, Zhou Yu scolded, "Don't worry about other people's affairs. You will compete soon. You should prepare well. You might as well take a good rest and heal your injuries." "That's right, brother Bai. This time you are in the top 50. You must work hard. If you win this game, you may be favored by the elders." Wu Fan also echoed. After listening, Bai Xiaowen thought it made sense, and then began to take pills and meditate. Wu Fan finally dealt with this chatterbox. Then he began to watch the competition on the field. 2 hours later, it was Zhou Yu's turn to play. This time he was not so lucky. He met a strong opponent of the 9th level and was defeated. Seeing Zhou Yu walk down the ring in despair, Wu Fan and Bai Xiaowen could only speak to comfort him. Another hour later, Bai Xiaowen came on the stage. His opponent was a female cultivator, who was at the 8th level of qi refining. In fact, this female cultivator was not strong enough for Wu Fan, but this was ultimately based on Wu Fan's strength. For Bai Xiaowen, who was at the 7th level, he could only lose the game. This was not because he thought the other party was a woman and showed mercy, but because he really couldn't beat the other party. Looking at Bai Xiaowen's bitter face, although Wu Fan felt a little sympathetic, he wanted to laugh more. At that time, Wu Fan had been watching the competition in the field, but what he saw was that senior brother Bai was beaten by the opponent and screamed. In less than a quarter of an hour, he shouted to surrender. With his performance in the field, if any elder really accepted him as a disciple, it would be really weird. After he returned to the stage, Wu Fan had no choice but to comfort him again. Zhou Yu had no time to deal with him. It was because Zhou Yu himself had not recovered from the defeat. The sky gradually darkened, and finally all the disciples finished the competition. Today's competition ended here. Tomorrow was the day to decide the top 25, so the 50 winners returned to their residence early and began to recuperate and recover their mana. Wu Fan and the other two also returned to their residence on flying swords. Before they separated, they both said that they would go to watch his competition tomorrow to cheer him up. Wu Fan smiled and nodded at them. On the second day, there were only the last 50 people left on the stage. Wu Fan had read the competition rules on the stone tablet before. The competitions after the first 50 disciples would be held on the same stage. He drew number 8 this time. There were only 3 competitions before him. Wu Fan did not need to prepare too much, so he returned to the stage to wait for him to appear. Time passed quickly. An hour later, Wu Fan came to the stage. At the same time, a male cultivator came to the opposite side. This male cultivator was about 26 or 27 years old, short, with a pair of triangular eyes and uneven teeth. He was extremely ugly, but he had the 9th level of qi refining. This was the person with the highest cultivation Wu Fan had met so far. After the short man came on stage, he laughed strangely at Wu Fan, and then he saw 2 black hooks suddenly slip out of his hands. These 2 hooks were both high-level magic weapons, which made Wu Fan slightly startled. He had never seen magic weapons in pairs. The male cultivator suddenly threw 2 hooks at Wu Fan. They were buzzing and emitting a faint black light during the flight. The speed was very fast. Without thinking too much, Wu Fan quickly slapped his storage bag and released the fiery sun sword and the soul-binding rope at the same time. The fiery sun sword went straight to one of the hooks, while the soul-binding rope went straight to the male cultivator. Then Wu Fan released 3 wind blades in a row and went straight to the other hook. Bang, 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 boom. At the same time, the 2 hooks were blocked by the wind blades and the fiery sun sword. The soul-binding rope bypassed the hooks and went straight to the male cultivator. The male cultivator was shocked when he saw the bundle of spiritual ropes shooting at him. He didn't expect that even with his 2 high-level magic weapons, he couldn't block all the attacks from the other party. The rope still broke through the blockade and shot at him. Before he could think about it, he saw the male cultivator slap his storage bag and directly released a black shield to block in front of him. But what he didn't expect was that when the rope reached the shield, it actually paused for a moment, then went around the shield closely and continued to rush towards him. The male cultivator was a little confused. During the period of days, he was thinking about what to do, but it was too late. At this time, the rope had tied him up. He only felt that his magic power stopped and stopped running. He couldn't use any magic power at all. In desperation, he could only shout, "I give up." "Thank you," Wu Fan said, put away the magic weapon and flew straight to the platform. After Wu Fan finished the fight, there was a commotion on the stage. All the disciples on the stage looked at Wu Fan with shock in their eyes. Who is this fellow disciple? Why haven't I seen him before? A cultivator of the 9th level of Qi refining was beaten by him. And he could end the fight so quickly, it was incredible. I have been observing this senior brother for several days. He always fights quickly. Few fellow disciples can match him. I haven't seen him in the outer sect before. I don't know when he entered the sect. Oh, what a pity. I was watching other arenas a few days ago, but I didn't notice this senior brother. I missed such a wonderful fight in vain. I met this senior brother in the outer sect Sutra Pavilion 2 years ago, but I remember that he was only at the 5th level of Qi refining at that time. How could he be at the 8th level now? Did I remember it wrong? It is impossible to improve so fast in 2 years, right? I think it is a sure thing for this senior brother to enter the top 10. It is really enviable. Chapter 55, Outer Sect Competition, 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With this senior brother's strength, there will definitely be elders rushing to accept him as a disciple. It is indeed very enviable. The disciples in the stands were talking a lot and looking at Wu Fan from time to time. The expressions in each person's eyes were different, including envy, jealousy, fear, admiration, etc. There were a few other eyes filled with hatred. These people were none other than fellow disciples who had been defeated by him. There were also some voices in the area of elders in the foundation building stage at this time. Elder Huang, I have decided on this disciple with you. Humph, then let's compete to see who will take this kid under his wing. I say you two should stop arguing now. If this kid enters the top 3, then you two may not have a chance. He won't be able to choose his master by then. Besides, we don't know what kind of spiritual root and physique he has. You know, why are you anxious? That Wu Fan felt a little uncomfortable feeling those gazes at this time. He had never been paid attention to by so many people before, and he felt a little embarrassed for a while. Wu Fan spent this day just watching the game. The next day, Wu Fan arrived early. At this time, he was sitting cross-legged and quietly closing his eyes to rest. There were obviously many more monks who came to watch the battle today than the previous 2 days. Nothing else, just because today is the final competition. At this time, the only 25 people left are gearing up and waiting. Those who can advance to the top 25 are not weak, but these people all want to break through the waves and advance to the top 10. Wu Fan is not worried at all about entering the top 10. Only he knows that he still has a trump card that he has not yet used. Time passed quickly, and as the middle-aged elder said, the game begins. The remaining 25 people immediately swarmed to the ring. There will be a disciple in this round of the game. Whoever can draw it. If you get an empty sign, that's just luck. Wu Fan walked up to the stage and took out a bamboo stick. After picking it up and looking at it, he was suddenly stunned. He couldn't believe it. Could it be such a coincidence? Then he turned the bamboo stick over and looked at it. The result was still the same. It was empty, with no writing at all. Only this time did Wu Fan believe that he had really been given a buy. Wu Fan was still very happy. At least he saved a lot of mana. He really didn't expect that his luck would be so good today. He was so happy that he returned to the stage with the bamboo stick and prepared to watch the next game. Time passed very quickly. 3 hours later, there were only 13 people left on the stage, including Wu Fan. Among these 13 people, there were 4 female cultivators and 9 male cultivators. Among the 12 Wu Fanguan, only 3 were very. What concerned him was that each of these 3 men was a man in his 20s or 80s. He was as tall as Yushu Linfeng and was good at using a set of 3 flying swords. Wu Fan had been paying attention to him in the past few days. He was the same as Wu Fan. Every time he plays, he wins the competition in several rounds. This male cultivator's name is Chen Yi. He is a cultivator at the 9th level of Qi training. Wu Fan remembers that Bai Xiaowen mentioned this person before. The second person is also a man. He is extremely tall, and the magic weapon in his hand is a black sledgehammer. Wu Fan has observed him and found that he should be a body cultivator, and body cultivators are also a type of monks, but it focuses on cultivating the physical body, making it become indestructible like a defensive magic weapon. At the same time, the strength is also amazing. When fighting with the physical cultivator, you must not let it get close, otherwise it will definitely be very troublesome. This man's name is Haoyu, who is also a peak monk at the 9th level of Qi refining. Bai Xiaowen also mentioned him before. The last person is senior sister Ling Wei. This senior sister Ling Wei attracted Wu Fan's attention not because she is beautiful, but because this senior sister is indeed a powerful monk. She is also a 9th level peak monk. It seems that she can break through 10 levels at any time. Judging from her appearance, she is only in her early 20s, which shows that senior sister Ling Wei's talent is absolutely incredible. At this time, the middle-aged elder named Rui Yuan came forward. He glanced at the 13 people in the field, and then said, "The following competition will be a round-based battle. The rules are as follows. Each person has one chance to challenge others. Opportunity: the selected monk cannot refuse to fight, and after the selected monk ends the game, others cannot challenge him until the beginning of the next round. Those who have lost 3 games in a row will be eliminated, and the ranking will be determined in the end. The selection order will still be determined by drawing lots." Elder Rui Yuan paused here, looked at the 13 people again, and then said, "Let's start." After that, he walked back directly. On the ring, the 13 people drew bamboo sticks and then all retreated to the edge of the ring. The bamboo stick in Wu Fan's hand was number 6. I saw the male cultivator holding number 1 bamboo stick walking to Taichung. He glanced around the crowd, and then pointed his finger at a woman. This woman was at the 8th level of Qi training. Her cultivation was indeed not high. She could walk so far. There is indeed an element of luck involved. When the woman saw that she was the first one chosen, her pretty and fair face suddenly turned red with anger, and then she walked onto the stage with a sweet hum. So the 2 people began to fight. The woman used 2 short guns, and the man used a long knife. The 2 people were of equal strength, and they were inseparable from each other. There was back and forth. As time passed, the woman was finally defeated and lost the game. The man was also tired and panting, and hurried back to the edge of the ring, sat cross-legged on the ground, and began to restore his mana. At this time, a woman holding bamboo stick number 2 came up to the stage and directly chose the man who had just finished the competition. When the man saw that he was chosen, his face turned black with anger and he called him despicable. He is now the mana in her body was empty and she was not suitable to continue fighting at all. The woman took a fancy to this, so she hurriedly walked onto the stage, hoping to win the game quickly. The man had no choice but to bite the bullet and walk onto the stage. There was no suspense at all. The man was defeated after not holding on for more than a quarter of an hour, and then walked off the stage in despair. However, he could rest. According to the regulations, no one could challenge him in this round. After 5 games, no one has come to challenge Wu Fan. This is not surprising. Anyone who has seen Wu Fan fight knows how strong he is, and no fool would dare to trouble him. In the 6th game, Wu Fan came on stage and saw a man he pointed at casually. This man was at the 9th level of Qi refining and his cultivation was pretty good. Wu Fan had nothing to do. Those who were weaker were basically challenged by others. However, Wu Fan had watched him compete. In Wu Fan's eyes, his strength was only average, so he called him to the stage. When the man saw that it was Wu Fan who challenged him, he was immediately shocked, and then showed a look of frustration. But he had no choice but to walk up to the stage helplessly. After he came on stage, the man simply said, "Senior brother Wu, I have watched your competition and know that I am not your opponent, so I admit defeat in this round." After the man finished speaking, he bowed slightly to Wu Fan and then walked off the ring. In fact, there is nothing wrong with him simply admitting defeat, because it is not a wise move to continue to compete even though he knows he is losing, and ultimately waste the mana in his body. It is also correct to save mana for the next round of competition. After the man admitted defeat, Wu Fan was also startled. then shook his head and smiled and returned to the edge of the ring. Chapter 56, Outer Sect Competition, 8. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. As each game ended, there were only 10 people left in the field, and these 10 people were the top 10 disciples. Among the 3 people who were eliminated, there were 2 men and 1 woman. Among them, the female cultivator who came on stage in the first game was eventually eliminated first. The second person was the man who was challenged as soon as he sat down in the second game. The third person is a young man with an 8th level of cultivation and the lowest strength among the 13 people. Among the top 10 monks selected in the field, some had lost 2 games in a row, and some had lost 1 game. Currently, there are only 4 who have not lost, and that is Wu Fan, Chen Yi, Hao Yu, and Ling Wei. At this time, thousands of disciples were also discussing on the stage. Some disciples commented excitedly, and some looked at the 10 people in the field with envy. Everyone knew that these 10 people would definitely being accepted as a disciple by the elders. He can also receive rewards from the sect. If anyone is not jealous, it must be a lie. I didn't expect junior brother Wu to be so hidden. He is so powerful that he actually broke into the top 10. Zhou Yu looked at Wu Fan in the field with an incredulous look on his face. Humph, he deceived us so miserably before that we even considered him our brother. But having said that, the stronger junior brother Wu is, the better. It is best if he can be in the top 3. Then he can choose a powerful master, which will be considered a success. Now that we have support, with junior brother Wu here, the 2 of us will live a better life in the inner sect, hee. Bai Xiaowen also said with a playful smile. And in the elder area. This little guy named Chen Yi is pretty good. He should be about to break through the 10th level. He can use 3 flying swords with ease. His consciousness should be stronger than ordinary people. He should be able to break into the top 3. Problem. I think Ling Wei is a good girl. She can cultivate to the peak of the 9th level at a young age, and her spiritual root qualifications are definitely not much different. Fairy Lingyun, I think you want to take this girl to your Miaoying peak, right? In my opinion, there shouldn't be any elders who will compete with you for this girl. Everyone knows Yu Miaoying Peak only accepts female disciples. Gee. Then Lingyun will thank the elders first. I think that boy Hao Yu suits my taste. As a monk, you should cultivate your physical body and use your strength to defeat all laws. That's the right way. The man who spoke was a bald middle-aged man. Judging from his sturdy back and tall build, he is also a physical practitioner. Humph, let me tell you, Elder Timon, don't think that just because you are a physical cultivator, you should look down on other monks. The world of immortality is so big, but I haven't seen any physical cultivator who dares to claim to be in the world of immortality. What? Elder Fan wants to compete with me? Let's just compete. Are you afraid that you won't succeed? I told you two to stop arguing. With so many elders here, you are not afraid of being laughed at. Everyone, I actually think the little guy named Wu Fan is pretty good. He is young but so strong. I think it is possible for him to break into the top 3. Well, what Elder Sun said is absolutely true. I think this little guy is pretty good. Judging from his age, he is only in his early 20s. It is not easy to reach the 8th level of Qi refining. In the playing field, there was still a fierce duel on the field. There were 7 men and 3 women among the top 10. The ones fighting at this time were Chen Yi and a male monk. Wu Fan saw that Chen Yi was really powerful. He saw that he was controlling 3 flying weapons. There is no expression on his face, and he can control it with ease. His consciousness must be different from ordinary people. Wu Fan thinks that he can't do it. With Wu Fan's current consciousness, the most he can do is controlling 3 magic weapons is good, but 1 more is impossible. However, even if Wu Fan controls 3 magic weapons at the same time, he will definitely not be as calm as Chen Yi. It is said that a monk in the foundation building stage can control 6 or 7 magic weapons at the same time. That is really powerful. Divine consciousness exists in the monk's sea of consciousness. Whether the monk controls a flying sword to fly or a magic weapon to fight, or refining elixirs and medicines, all of which require the support of spiritual consciousness. Some monks are born with strong spiritual consciousness, but that is only among a small number of people. Other monks generally have spiritual consciousness that will slow down as their realm improves. It is growing slowly, but it is said that in ancient times, there was a secret technique for cultivating spiritual consciousness, but now it is no longer seen in the world of immortality. At this time, Chen-Yi beat the male cultivator until he was unable to fight back. As expected, after a few rounds, Chen-Yi won the game. The next battle was between Hao Yu and a man. Hao Yu's tall body was standing there, exuding an extremely brave aura, but the face of the man opposite him showed a look of fear. His eyes were also shaking. At this time, he was also struggling fiercely deep in his heart, whether to fight or not to fight. According to watching this Hao Yu fight before, his opponent usually ended the fight with injuries, but he has lost 2 games in a row. If he doesn't fight, he will also withdraw from the game and end up in 9th place in front of the man who lost the last game. After struggling internally for a moment, the man's eyes showed determination. He decided to fight. Even if he was injured, it would be more honorable than simply admitting defeat. The result was no suspense at all. In less than a quarter of an hour, the man was severely injured and was finally dragged off the field. At this time, there were only 8 people left in the ring. Of these 8, only Wu Fan had reached the 8th level of qi refining, but no one dared to look down upon him. The next competition was between senior sister Ling Wei and a male monk. As soon as senior sister Ling Wei stood in the field, she gave people a pleasing feeling. She was wearing a light yellow dress, coupled with her fair and delicate face. It was as if a fairy had descended into the mortal world. Senior sister Ling Wei used a long red silk ribbon. The long silk ribbon was like a giant dragon circling and flying in the air, slapping towards the man. The man who was hit had no power to fight back, but senior sister Ling Wei was unable to fight back. Just stand there, look at each other, and perform a few magic tricks from time to time. After a while, the man finally couldn't hold on anymore, was tied up by the long silk, and fell to the ground. Since his fall, 8th place has gone to him. In the next game, Wu Fan went to battle. This time he chose a female cultivator. This female cultivator was about the same age as Wu Fan. She was about 23 or 24 years old. Her name was Jingyao. She was quite graceful, especially her breasts. Wu Fan couldn't help but take a few more glances at the 2 peaks in front of him. The woman's face turned red when Wu Fan looked at him, and then she snorted and said, "Junior brother, have you seen enough? If you have seen enough, let's start competing." Wu Fan was embarrassed by the other party's words, his old face turned red, and then he said, "Sister, please." Chapter 57, Outer Sect Competition, Part 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. So the 2 began to fight. Fairy Jingyao used a silver flying sword, and her strength was not bad. There were basically no weak ones who could enter the top 10. But for Wu Fan, this woman was still too weak. Fan only released the fiery sun sword and the spirit binding rope, plus some ice picks and wind blades, and beat her until she gave up. At this time, there were still the top 6 people on the field, including Wu Fan, Chen-Yi, Hao Yu, Ling Wei, and 2 other people. They were a man and a woman. The man was dressed in black, had short hair, and was called Haran. The woman is wearing a white dress. She is 23 or 4 years old. Her name is Xinyan. She is beautiful and refined. She is also a rare beauty, but she is still slightly inferior to Ling Wei. The next match was between these 2 people. The strength of these 2 people was similar, and the fight was back and forth. It took half an hour to decide the winner, but in the end Fairy Xinyan lost the competition. The next round was for Chen-Yi to choose his opponent. He chose the man named Haran. In the last round, Haran challenged Xinyan, so Chen-Yi's choice of Haran was within the rules. When Haran saw that it was Chen-Yi who challenged him, his face suddenly dimmed. He understood that it would be very difficult for him to keep 5th place. He would never be able to beat Chen-Yi, but he still had to be tough. I'd rather fight with my scalp, otherwise I really wouldn't be willing to do it. A quarter of an hour later, Harun stepped down in despair. The next match was chosen by Hao Yu. He walked up to the stage, smiled at Wu Fan and said, "Junior brother Wu, I have watched many of your matches and I know that you are pretty good. But if you meet me today, then I can only say that you are out of luck. You are destined to lose this game. Junior brother, come on stage and let me learn your great skills and see if you can break my defense." Since senior brother Hao Yu wants to learn how to cast spells, then junior brother, I can only be respectful and obey your orders. Wu Fan said and walked onto the stage, then released the fierce sun sword and held it in his hand. At this time, Hao Yu suddenly took out the sledgehammer and held it in his right hand. Then he chuckled and said, "Junior brother Wu, I'm about to attack. You must not let me get close. Otherwise, you can only exit it due to serious injury. Brother, just come here. If I get injured, it can only be blamed on my inferior skills." Wu Fan looked a little ugly after hearing Hao Yu's words. "He just hit me. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" At the same time, the more than 2,000 disciples sitting on the stage also stared at the two people in the audience with their eyes wide open, with excitement on their faces. The stage with so many people sitting on it was completely silent at this time. Bai Xiaowen and Zhou Yu also clenched their fists and looked down. If you listen carefully, you can hear these two people whispering softly, "We must win." In the area of the Foundation establishment elders, they were also watching the fight between the two men, and some of the elders were commenting. "I really don't know who can win between these two little guys. If you ask me to say, Hao Yu will win, unless Wu Fan has some backup plan, otherwise he will definitely not be able to win. Even if he practices those basic spells to perfection, he still can't break through Hao Yu's defense, unless he can cultivate those basic spells to the state of great perfection. But how is this possible? Who has so much time to practice these small spells? It is very rare that Wu Fan can cultivate these basic spells to great achievements. What Elder Bai said is true. Well, I also agree with what Elder Bai said." At this time, Elder Li, who took Wu Fan up the mountain, said nothing, and just sat there and watched quietly. In fact, he did not expect that the little guy who took Wu Fan up the mountain unexpectedly broke into the top 10, and even I hope I can push forward, but I don't know if I can get into the top 3. At this time, Wu Fan's face became serious, and he lost the carelessness he used to treat other competitions. At this moment, Hao Yu opened his legs and rushed straight towards Wu Fan. He actually did not release his magic weapon to attack Wu Fan, but wanted to fight at close range. However, this is also the uniqueness of physical cultivation. They just have to rely on it. Is conceivable that the physical body is powerful and has the power to crush opponents, as long as they are close to these body cultivators. At this time, when Wu Fan saw the opponent rushing towards him, he did not dare to neglect, and directly released the fierce sun sword. He saw the fiery yang sword circle in the sky and then shoot straight towards Hao Yu. However, Hao Yu ignored the attack of the Liang sword. He grinned at Wu Fan and let out a weird laugh. Then he used a giant hammer in his hand and hit the Liang sword violently. There was a loud bang, the sound shook the arena, and the fierce sun sword was smashed into the sky, and no trace could be seen. When Wu Fan saw this scene, he was suddenly startled, and he couldn't help being horrified. This is how much strength is required to achieve this level. This is how hard the fierce sun sword is. If it were replaced with a normal magical weapon, it would be smashed into pieces with just one blow. Without thinking too much, Hao Yu was not stopped by the fierce sun sword. Wu Fan suddenly slapped the storage bag and directly released the spirit binding rope. This spirit binding rope can be used in every possible way. Wu Fan, I don't believe that Hao Yu can escape this blow. At this time, they saw that the rope for binding spirits had already arrived in front of Hao Yu and was about to tie him away. However, a shocking scene appeared. Hao Yu suddenly stretched out his left hand and grabbed the rope for binding spirits. And one end of the bundle of spiritual ropes was held in his hand, and then he saw his arms begin to rotate rapidly, and finally he threw it violently into the sky, and the bundle of spiritual ropes flew towards the sky like an arrow from the string. High in the sky, the experience of this bundle of spiritual ropes was so similar to that of the fierce sun sword. Wu Fan had fought with people so many times, but he had never seen this kind of fighting style. Although he was shocked, there was no time for him to sigh, because Hao Yu was about to arrive in front of him. At this moment, Na Hao Yu gave a strange laugh to Wu Fan, as if to say, "Boy, you are about to be seriously injured and eliminated." At this moment, Wu Fan made a secret with one hand, and then waved his arm, huge ice pick, hoping that these spells can stop the opponent's progress. When Na Hao Yu saw these spells, he grinned. A layer of black light suddenly appeared from his body, and then he blocked the sledgehammer in front of him, and then began to rotate wildly. The sledgehammer he rotates like a fan. Puff puff puff, bang bang bang, boom. Wu Fan took a closer look and found that most of the spells he sent were blocked by the sledgehammer. Only a few wind blades hit the opponent, but nothing happened to the opponent. You know, with Wu Fan's mastery of wind blade skills, even a huge boulder can be easily broken into pieces, but the other party's body is unharmed. Wu Fan is really shocked. Without thinking too much, the opponent was about to arrive. Wu Fan had no choice but to use his trump card. Wu Fan just heard a cold snort, and then saw his body trembling. At this moment, Wu Fan's body suddenly emitted a light golden light, and this light spread to 10 feet away in an instant. The moment the light spread, Hao Yu's body that had just arrived in front of him suddenly paused, as if he had been cast a restraining spell, and then he slowly squatted down as if a big mountain was pressing on him. After getting down, I saw that he was sweating profusely and gritting his teeth to hold on. At the same time, there was a look of fear in his eyes. He was no longer as arrogant and domineering as before. This is what he is called a physical practitioner. If it had been anyone else, he would have been pushed to the ground long ago. At this time, he was gritting his teeth and persisting, and slowly showing signs of getting up. At this time, Wu Fan had slowly walked up to him, and at the same time, a long sword appeared in his hand, pointing at his head. You lose. Chapter 58, Outer Sect Competition, 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Wu Fan said that you lost, he had already put away the golden yuan chongguang, and at the same time threw the fast sword in his hand into the storage bag, and then threw the fierce sun sword that fell from the sky. He put away the spirit rope. Then he slowly walked back to the edge of the ring, but at this time, Hao Yu had a dull look on his face. He never thought that he would lose. This was also the first game he lost. More importantly, he didn't know why he lost. What kind of magical power was this? My body is so miserable. Thinking of the scene just now, he is still frightened. Before, he seemed to be pressed by a mountain and couldn't stand up. In this case, he could only let others slaughter him. There is no room for resistance at all. Thinking of this, he stood up slowly and glanced at Wu Fan in the distance. There was no unwillingness or resentment in his eyes, nor was he depressed because he lost the competition, because he knew that he did not lose unfairly, just because the other party is simply too powerful. He picked up the sledgehammer and walked slowly back to the outside. At this time, Chen Yi, Ling Wei, Xian Yan, Jing Yao, Haran, including the thousands of disciples sitting on the stage, all looked dumbfounded. They never imagined that things would develop like this, that this situation would actually happen. It was Hao Yu who lost. They all seemed to have seen Wu Fan being seriously injured just now, but in the end, Wu Fan stood there intact and pointed at Hao Yu with the long sword in his hand. The contrast was really too great. In everyone's eyes, Hao Yu just seemed to rush to Wu Fan and kneel down for him, so fast that people didn't even react for a moment. At this time, Zhou Yu and Bai Xiaowen were also staring at Wu Fan with their mouths open. Their junior brother was too powerful. Senior brother Zhou, pinch me, I seem to be hallucinating. Why did I just see that Hao Yu run up to our junior brother Wu and kneel down for him? Bai Xiaowen said and punched Zhou Yu beside him with his arm, but his eyes were looking down. Don't touch me. I seem to be hallucinating, just like what you saw. Foundation building stage elders area. What secret technique does this boy practice? I've never seen him before, he shouldn't be from our sect. I think it's a bit like the legendary magical power of the realm, but it's not the same. Its power is much smaller than the legendary realm. This secret technique is okay for the chi refining period, but if it is used on our existence, it won't be too big. It worked. You're farting, why don't you look at this kid's current level of cultivation? If he reaches the foundation building stage in the future, do you dare to say that you can withstand this secret technique? I want this boy, don't snatch it from me. Hey, Elder Bai, you are thinking well. This kid has this secret skill. It is certain that he will be in the top 3. Will he choose you as his master? As long as this kid is willing to become my disciple, I will definitely teach him well. He will be able to practice to the 8th level of chi refining at a young age. His spiritual root and physique should also be the same. A few decades later, Zuiyin Foam will definitely have a strong person in the foundation building stage appear. I'm talking to Elder Bai, look back at everyone. There are quite a few people who have the same idea as you. It seems that this little guy has already become your disciple. It's not certain who he belongs to. I don't care how you try to snatch this kid away. I'm going to decide on that how you kid. He's the most suitable person to practice my Qingsan peak technique. If I want to be a physical practitioner, there's no other peak to go to. I'm telling you, Elder Timon, no one is trying to snatch that how you boy from you, so you don't have to remind everyone over and over again. That's best. If anyone dares to compete with me for this how you boy, don't blame me for falling out. Hey, since senior brother Timon has said so, then Lingyun should shamelessly settle on girls Jingyao and Xinyan first. I'm talking to Fairy Lingyun, you have already decided on Ling Wei before, so why have you decided on 2 top 10 disciples? Is Miaoyin Peak so short of disciples? Isn't it a bit too much? Oh, senior brother Zhou, you wrongly blamed Lingyun. I ordered these 2 girls for the 2 junior sisters of Miaoyin Peak. I only accept Ling Wei. Okay, please stop arguing and wait until the competition is over. In the ring, Ling Wei was the first to choose his opponent for the next round. At this time, Ling Wei walked onto the stage, saluted Chen Yi Yingying, and said, Senior brother Chen Yi, let me teach you how to control the sword this time. I hope you will. Brother, please be merciful. Since junior sister wants to challenge me, I won't be ruthless. Junior sister, please. Brother pleased that I saw that Ling Wei finally stopped using a magic weapon this time. This time in addition to the long silk ribbon, she also released a long sword. But Chen Yi was still the same. 3 flying swords came out at the same time and went straight towards Ling Wei. Ling Wei turned her palm and took out a small shield. With a flick of her wrist, the small shield was thrown by her. Throwing it into the sky, she saw that the small shield was strong in the wind. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a huge shield blocking the sky above her. At this time, only one of Chen Yi's 3 flying swords was left and shot towards the shield. Come on, the remaining 2 swords were blocked by Ling Wei's long silk and flying sword, and then with a boom, Chen Yi's last flying sword was also blocked. In this way, the 2 men fought so fiercely that it was difficult to tell the winner. As time passed, Ling Wei gradually became weak. After a while, Ling Wei was finally defeated and lost the battle. Contest, now among the 4 people on the stage, only Wu Fan and Chen Yi have never lost a game. Hao Yu and Ling Wei have each lost a game. Wu Fan will choose first for the next game. Wu Fan walked onto the stage and looked at the 3 people. According to the rules, Chen Yi had just been challenged, so Wu Fan could not choose him. Senior sister Ling Wei had just fought and her mana was empty. Wu Fan could not bear to challenge her. If he really challenged her, he could not be too aggressive. Wu Fan had no choice but to look at Hao Yu. Hao Yu was straightforward and said, I give up. That Wu Fan shook his head and walked back helplessly, but Ling Wei nodded to him with gratitude. This match ended like this, the next match was still for Chen Yi to choose his opponent. He was seen wavering. He could only choose Wu Fan or Ling Wei. Hao Yu had just been chosen by Wu Fan, so he could not choose. He really didn't know who to choose. If he chose Ling Wei, they had just competed. If he continued to choose her, it would be a bit embarrassing. And the opponent was a female cultivator. But if he chose Wu Fan, he had no confidence that he could win the competition. There were thousands of disciples watching on the stage, and so many elders were watching. After thinking for a moment, he looked at Wu Fan. Wu Fan walked towards the stage disapprovingly and said, "Please, senior brother Chen Yi. Junior brother Wu is very powerful. I can only go all out. I hope you won't be surprised." Chen Yi smiled at Wu Fan. When Wu Fan heard this, he was stunned. Could it be that Chen Yi had any other tricks besides the 3 flying swords? It's right for senior brother to use all his strength. There's nothing to be surprised about. Wu Fan released the Liang sword after he finished speaking. Chapter 59. The competition ends. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wu Fan had other ideas about this game. He wanted to try and see if he could defeat Chen Yi without Jin Yuan Zhongguang. If not, he could only continue to use it. At this time, Wu Fan was seen making secrets with one hand, and the fierce Yang sword instantly turned into a red light and went straight towards Chen Yi. At the same time, he released the spirit binding rope, and then put the Xianxia needle. He held it in his left hand, and then started to knead with one hand, muttering something in his mouth, when a huge ice pick suddenly appeared in his right hand, and it also headed towards Chen Yi. Opposite, Chen Yi saw that Wu Fan was so fierce as soon as he made a move, and his face was moved by it. Without thinking too much, he saw Chen Yi control 3 flying swords at the same time and shoot towards Wu Fan's magic weapons and spells. Boom boom boom. After a loud noise, the 3 flying swords were blocked by Wu Fan's magic weapon and ice pick. Wu Fan knew that his fiery sun sword and spirit binding rope could only block the opponent's 2 flying swords, and the remaining flying sword could only be blocked by magic. His thoughts were racing, and he kept thinking about how to stop the other flying sword. He won the competition without using any gold or silver. In the end, he actually thought of a way, which was to continue to release spells to block the opponent's other flying sword. With the spells he had mastered, his casting speed was definitely beyond the reach of others. In comparison, Wu Fan speculated that he would be able to block the opponent's flying sword for a moment even if he used spells. This is Wu Fan. If it were anyone else, he wouldn't even dare to think about it. Who else in their 20s could do that? Have you practiced basic spells to perfection before? Unless he gives up improving his cultivation and only practices magic, it is possible. But where can there be such a fool? Wu Fan wanted to cast a spell to block the opponent's flying sword for a moment. When the opportunity came, he quietly released the Xianxia needle and finally won the game. After the roar, Wu Fan continued to release spells without stopping. He released some fireball spells, wind blade spells, ice cone spells, etc., and flew towards the opponent with his sword. The speed was so fast that people sitting on the stage were shocked. Those disciples were a little stunned. Looking at the opponent's flying sword, it was indeed slowed down by the bombardment, but Wu Fan had quietly released the Xianxia needle and the chaos of the spell explosion. Whether it would succeed or not depended on this attack. Wu Fan looked forward, and when he looked carefully, he saw a scene that made his heart tremble. At this moment, Chen Yi was also watching him intently. Just when the Xianxia needle was about to reach him, Chen Yi grinned at Wu Fan, and then saw something suddenly slipping out of his sleeve. A dagger, and that dagger was also a high-level magic weapon. Then Chen Yi flicked his arm and released the dagger directly, and went straight towards the Xianxia needle. With a boom, the Xianxia needle he was stopped like this, and when Chen Yi released the dagger, his face turned pale, as if he was in pain. When Wu Fan saw this scene, he suddenly became stunned. How could Chen Yi control 4 magic weapons at the same time? How powerful is his consciousness to be able to do this? Without thinking too much, Wu Fan's spells only lasted for a moment. At this time, the opponent's flying sword was already flying towards him at high speed. In a hurry, Wu Fan threw out a few more attack talismans. After the roar and explosion, there was still no result. After a change, the flying sword rushed out again. Seeing the flying sword coming right in front of him, Wu Fan sighed in his heart. Then he saw his body tremble slightly, and suddenly a pale golden light emitted from his body, and the pale golden light instantly spread to a radius of 10 feet. At the moment when the pale golden light spread, the flying sword that rushed to Wu Fan suddenly stopped in the air, and then fell to the ground with a snap above it. It was still trembling violently, as if it wanted to continue flying. Unfortunately, it couldn't fly now. At the same time, 20 feet away from Wu Fan, Chen Yi's flying swords and daggers also fell to the ground, including Chen Yi himself, who also lay down on the ground. From there, the game was over. Wu Fan looked at Chen Yi and sighed in his heart. He didn't expect that he wouldn't be able to win this competition if he didn't use Jinyuan Chongguang. Fortunately, he learned this magical power. Otherwise, he would not be able to enter the top 3. By then, he would also have no right to choose his master. Wu Fan put away his magical power, then took back his magic weapon, and then walked back to the outside. After Wu Fan withdrew his magical power, Chen Yi also slowly got up. His face showed the same expression as Hao Yu before. Now he finally knew why Hao Yu was so embarrassed before. The other party was too powerful. If the other party used this magical power from the very beginning, and he thought he had no power to fight back. He walked back to the stage a little depressed, and felt very disappointed. He had always left his trump card unused, and wanted to rely on this 4th magic weapon to make a big splash, but in the end he failed miserably. The more than 2,000 disciples sitting on the stage had recovered from the shock. They all felt it was amazing when they saw Wu Fan using this magical power again, but in the elders' area, the elders didn't show much expression. They seemed to have already guessed that this would be the result. The next game is for Ling Wei to choose her opponent. She can only choose Hao Yu this time because she can't beat Chen Yi, and Wu Fan has just been challenged. Even if she can choose Wu Fan, she can't choose. Without it, I really don't have the confidence to fight against Wu Fan. Ling Wei walked up to the stage, glanced at Hao Yu, and then said, "Senior brother, please." Hao Yu slowly walked forward, glanced at Ling Wei who was standing gracefully on the stage, and then said, "Junior sister, you are no match for me. I will definitely hurt someone if I attack." After Hao Yu finished speaking, he looked back at Wu Fan, and then said, "Except for senior brother Wu." After hearing this, Ling Wei was furious and her face gradually turned ugly. After thinking for a while, she said again, "Brother, please." Then she released a long silk and a flying sword, while Hao Yu sighed and then held his sledgehammer. The battle was quick. In less than a quarter of an hour, Ling Wei was defeated. As Hao Yu deliberately held back, Ling Wei only suffered some minor injuries. From then on, the game was over. Ling Wei walked off the stage in despair. She knew that she could not enter the top 3. The 3 people on the stage were not something she could deal with. Thinking of this, she sighed. At present, Hao Yu lost 2 games, both of which were lost to Wu Fan. He lost 1 game in the competition and conceded 1 game. Ling Wei also lost 2 games, 1 to Chen Yi and 1 to Hao Yu. Chen Yi lost 1 game. At present, only Wu Fan has won all the games. At this time, the middle-aged elder Rui Yuan came forward, looked at the people on the stage, and then said, "Chen Yi, Hao Yu, you 2 will have one last duel to rank the 2nd and 3rd. After that, the elder Rui Yuan went back. Everyone knew that there was no need to continue the competition. The strength of each of them was clear at a glance. At present, only Chen Yi and Hao Yu had not fought each other. The 2nd and 3rd place could only be selected from these 2, the 2 people in the field had already stood still. Chen Yi showed a doubtful look in his eyes. He had watched Hao Yu fight several times and knew that Hao Yu was really strong. Not only was his body indestructible, but his strength was also strong. He could not compare with him. He could only control the flying sword to attack from a distance and never let the opponent get close. Only in this way could he have the opportunity to exhaust the opponent's physical strength and finally have the hope of winning the competition. As the battle began, the two men used all their abilities, but anyone with a discerning eye could see that Chen Yi was gradually losing the upper hand, and it wouldn't be long before Hao Yu would rush in front of him. This was indeed the case. Half an hour later, the game was over. Hao Yu was too powerful. Chen Yi controlled 4 magical weapons in a row, but was unable to stop Hao Yu's steps. In the end, Hao Yu rushed in front of him and he lost the competition. Chapter 60 Entering the Inner Gate. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. With the end of the Outer Sect competition, the top 100 disciples came to the stage one after another. They were all waiting for the elders to come, and they all had expectations in their eyes, hoping that one of the elders would choose them. However, these people were ranked at the bottom, and the top 10 disciples would definitely not worry about this. They had great confidence that they would become disciples of the elders. The least worried ones would definitely be the top 3 disciples. They had a privilege that other disciples envied, that is, these 3 people had the right to choose their own master. At this time, the more than 2,000 disciples sitting on the stage also looked at the people on the stage with envy. These 100 people were different from them from then on. Not only were they different in status, but there were also many things that they could not envy. When they looked at Wu Fan, Hao Yu, and Chen Yi, their eyes showed fanaticism, and they even wanted to replace these 3 people. At this time, Wu Fan's eyes were also a little excited. After so many competitions, he finally entered the top 3 as he wished, and also won the first place. He finally didn't have to worry about the problem of spiritual roots and physique, and no elders chose him as a disciple. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but clench his hands in his sleeves a little tighter. Finally, in the expectant eyes of the disciples, the elders in the foundation building period walked down from their chairs and came to the front of them. The middle-aged elder Rui Yuan said, "The 7-day Outer Sect competition is finally over. The top 100 disciples performed very well. The elders present have also seen it. Next, please ask the elders to choose their favorite disciples. Wu Fan, Hao Yu, Chen Yi, you 3 can choose your own master. You can choose now, or you can observe and choose." The elder Rui Yuan paused here, then he looked around at the disciples, and then continued, "After the elders have chosen their disciples, everyone will follow me to the ancestral hall and ask me to clear. The ancestors of Feng Men will perform the kneeling ceremony, and the head brother will preside over it for you." After Elder Rui Yuan finished speaking, he turned to look at the elders and said with a smile, "Elders, let's start." At this time, a bald strong man suddenly walked out from the crowd of elders. He had a loud voice and looked directly at Hao Yu, and said at the same time, "Hao Yu, I am the Iron Barbarian of Qingsang Peak. Are you willing to be my disciple? Don't refuse first. I know you have the right to choose, but you have to know that in the entire Qingfengmen, only my Qingsang Peak is the main way of cultivating the body, so you have to think about it." "Disciple is willing," Hao Yu said directly without thinking. "It is the main way of cultivating the body, and it has always been his wish to go to Qingsang Peak." The bald man heard this and nodded with satisfaction, and a smile appeared on his rough face. At this time, 3 foundation building cultivators came out from the crowd of elders. However, these 3 were female cultivators. They looked to be in their 30s or 40s, but in fact, they were already unknown how old they were. It was possible that they were 100 or 200 years old. After the cultivators reached the foundation building stage, their appearance would age very slowly, and some female cultivators would even practice the art of keeping their youth, so their specific age could not be seen from their appearance. At this time, one of the 3 looked at Ling Wei and said, "Girl Ling Wei, I am Elder Ling Yun from Miaoying Peak. I wonder if you want to be my disciple." Elder Ling Yun looked less than 40 years old, but she was dignified and bright. Seeing her would make people feel bright. "Disciple is willing." At this time, Ling Wei came over and bowed to Elder Ling Yun. "Okay, Ling Wei, get up, come and stand behind me." Ling Yun looked at Ling Wei with a smile for a moment, and then nodded to herself, as if she was very satisfied with the disciple she accepted. Then another female elder looked at Xinyan and said with a smile, "Xinyan girl, I am also an elder of Miaoying Peak. Are you willing to be my disciple? But when Xinyan saw that an elder had chosen her, her eyes lit up and she immediately replied, disciple is willing, and the last female elder was more direct. She came up and said, Jingyao, I am also an elder of Miaoyin Peak. Why don't you come over? Jingyao was already pretty. When she heard an elder calling her, she suddenly showed a look of surprise on her face, and then she giggled twice. Her smile made her even more beautiful. She raised her legs and ran towards the elder, shouting disciple is willing. As she ran, the two huge peaks on her chest trembled. At this time, Elder Rui Yuan laughed and said, I say, 3 fairies, don't you check the spiritual roots and physiques of these disciples? Are you so anxious to accept them as your disciples? Hee, what is there to check? They can cultivate to the 9th level of qi refining at such a young age, how bad can their spiritual roots and physiques be? Elder Lingyun replied with a chuckle. At this time, a male elder hurried out. He looked like he was in his 50s. He came out and said, Wu Fan, I am Elder Huang from Yunhai Peak. Are you willing to become my disciple? But when Wu Fan heard this in the crowd, he was suddenly startled, and then he reacted. He was about to reply. At this time, another elder hurried out. Wu Fan, I am Elder Bai from Suiyin Peak. Come to my sect. I will definitely teach you well. At this time, 3 or 4 elders came out in succession. Wu Fan, I am Elder Fan from Tianhen Peak. Do you want to be my disciple? Wu Fan, I am Elder Zheng from Xianxia Peak. You should come to my school. I have few disciples and I have plenty of time. Don't worry, I will teach you well. Humph, Elder Zheng, you have already accepted 7 or 8 disciples, right? You still have the nerve to say that you have few disciples. Wu Fan, come to my Guanyin Peak, I only have 3 disciples. At this time, 5 or 6 elders came out and looked at Wu Fan at the same time, but before they started to speak, Rui Yuan hurriedly spoke first. Elders, wait a moment, don't rush to snatch people. Wu Fan is the first in the competition, he has the right to choose his own master, shouldn't you ask him which mountain he wants to go to first? After hearing Rui Yuan's words, the elders all turned to look at Wu Fan, waiting for what he said. Wu Fan looked at the elders, and he was still very nervous. He had never been stared at by so many foundation-building cultivators. Seeing the powerful aura on them, Wu Fan's legs trembled a little. He was not a timid person, but the aura emanating from these elders was really powerful. He had never thought that today would be such a scene. If these elders knew that he was a mixed spiritual root of the 5 elements, how would they feel? If Wu Fan really became a disciple of one of them, then after learning about his situation, the master would definitely regret accepting him, right? It is even possible that he would ignore him in the future.